Hey everyone, Greg Staley here of Diverge Media. Another Mark Carney conflict of interest? Let's talk about it.
Ukraine, on the land, in the air, and the sea, and I would not exclude the presence of troops.
Now, we just released today another article detailing another potential conflict of interest surrounding Mark Carney and his comments that recently came out at a news conference held in Ukraine. Now, at this news conference in Ukraine, the Prime Minister told reporters that he would not rule out deploying Canadian troops on the ground of the country.
We are working through with our allies in the Coalition of the Willing and with Ukraine the modalities of those security guarantees on the land, in the air, and the sea. And I would not exclude the presence of troops. Yeah.
En français, s'il vous plaît.
Now, as Canadians, we must ask why the Prime Minister would be willing to break from Canadian policy to this point and potentially send Canadians to war to die. Now, we must look past the emotionally charged political rhetoric and examine the Prime Minister's personal interest in the matter. Now, Prime Minister Mark Carney's former company, Brookfield, where he holds millions of dollars in stock, is set to benefit enormously from the reconstruction of Ukraine. Perhaps this explains why Conflict Carney won't rule out putting Canadian troops on the ground in Ukraine. Perhaps he needs to protect the assets of himself and his friends at Brookfield. Now, in 2023, Brookfield acquired a company called Westinghouse alongside Cameco. Westinghouse is involved in manufacturing nuclear reactors and has been helping Ukraine decouple from Russia by working to make nuclear fuel bundles that are compatible with Ukraine's Soviet-era reactors. Now, not only is the company working with Ukraine to decouple from Russian nuclear fuel, but the company has also struck a deal with Ukraine to build 9 AP1000 nuclear reactors. And according to Cameco, the cost to construct such a reactor, based on MIT estimates, is in the range of $6 to $8 billion per reactor. However, it says the price can vary significantly depending on the country's labor and construction productivity rates. That being said, even with an extremely conservative estimate of $4 billion per reactor in Ukraine, Brookfield would have at least $36 billion worth of investments in the country. This isn't the only investment that Brookfield has in the war-torn nation either. Brookfield is also the biggest investor in a $160 million IT park located in Lviv. Now here's where things get even more interesting. Brookfield was approached by an organization known as Advantage Ukraine, which was created by the Ukrainian government to seek out investors to help rebuild the country, essentially. Now, reading from the LinkedIn post itself, today the Advantage Ukraine team met with Brookfield to present the current investment opportunities and business climate in Ukraine to the company. They discussed key sectors of the economy that could be potentially attractive for investment and also explored the issue of the country's reconstruction. So, not only is Brookfield invested in Ukraine through their acquisition of Westinghouse, where they're set to build 9 nuclear reactors, Brookfield was specifically approached by the Ukrainian government's Advantage Ukraine organization that is actively seeking investment in the country. Now, it seems that Brookfield has a man on the inside of Canada's highest political office. The Prime Minister's former company, where he holds millions of dollars in stock and undoubtedly where he has formed many friendships, has billions of dollars to be made in Ukraine. And perhaps this explains why Mark Carney is open to the idea of deploying Canadian troops. Certainly the question of this Prime Minister's motivations around this needs to be examined in this light. And I would add, the mainstream media needs to do their job here. This is not hard information to find. I'm an independent media guy. It's just me. I have no team. So for me to find this information so quickly, so easily, what's your excuse other than potentially running cover for this government? Ask the basic questions. Mr. Prime Minister, your former company Brookfield is set to build 9 nuclear reactors through their acquisition of a company called Westinghouse in Ukraine. You are departing from the Liberal Party's traditional line on Ukraine and where the government has been so far, in saying that you're open to the idea of putting Canadian troops on the ground. Is there any influence from your former friends or your investments? Are they potentially motivating this decision? Now, I would love to believe the Prime Minister just, has nothing to do with his policy-making decision process, but I find it extremely difficult to believe that it doesn't have any impact. I'm Greg Staley of Diverge Media. Thank you for watching this video. Remember to like, share, and subscribe so that you get more content like this. If you can, go to divergemedia.ca and drop us a donation so that we can continue to do work like this. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, all the best.